I like this thing. Now you kill me. Go ahead, son. You do it.
Hey, how's it going? So, this is going to be a bit of a different video. You see, I don't have that fancy DSLR camera that I've had in my prior videos, and so now I'm resorted to using DaVinci Resolve to make the best that I can out of my videos. So I hope you enjoy. Speaking of, you might as well hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification button, and then one day in the far off future, I'll be monetized and I can actually afford a new camera and you can see that beautiful face again. Now, with that aside, let's talk about one of my favorite movies that seems to be heavily disliked by both critics and regular moviegoers alike, and that is Spawn. Now, I'm not going to drone on about the story. The story is pretty simple. You see, you got a guy named Al Simmons, and he's like the top assassin in the world. He's been working for a boss who's just been doing some shady deals with, well, with the devil? Or a version of the devil called Malboja. Now, this awful CGI-looking monster actually just wants Al Simmons to be the general of his armies so he can storm the gates of heaven. So, Martin Sheen, doing the best that he can with what he's given in this film, portrays Michael J. White, who actually pulls off a great performance in this movie. Now, Al Simmons goes down to hell. Malboja offers him a deal and says, hey, you be the general of my armies, I'll let you go back up to Earth and you can be with Wanda. And so, Al Simmons agrees, although furry CGI monster here has other plans up his sleeve. You see, he actually waits 5 years to send Al up to Earth. Now, by that time, his main squeeze, Wanda, has moved on. She's actually married to his best friend, which, ouch, that's gotta hurt. And on top of that, they have a kid, which is, I guess, even worse? But this is actually Malboja's plan. You see, his plan is to get Al Simmons to become Spawn, this awesome-looking demon knight with these powers that include chains coming out, healing, and some other weird stuff that's not really explained in the film. Now, Al makes it back up to Earth, and he sees that everything's gone to shit, but he still doesn't know that it's been 5 years. Hell, he doesn't even know what he looks like. He doesn't understand that he looks like a piece of fried chicken, and everything that's happened with Wanda since then. Now, the world 5 years later is just a complete shithole. Everything is just awful, everyone's poor, everything's dirty. Anyway, so Al heads home, and then he discovers that Wanda has moved on, that Terry's with her, and that they have a kid. And then he's dragged away by Violator, who's played by John Leguizamo. I have some gripes about him, but his prosthetics look amazing. Now, throughout the course of the movie, Al Simmons eventually becomes Spawn, and in the end, he does succeed in getting his revenge, and he ends up saving Wanda, and he's okay with Terry and her being together, and he's okay with the kid. Although, I don't think in the film they ever explained that the child is actually Al Simmons' daughter, but I assume it is? I don't know. Okay, so that's the basics of the movie, and there's a bit more there, but not much. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about what works and what doesn't work in this film. So let's start off with what works. Number one, Michael J. White. This guy has charisma. He knows martial arts. He looks great. I don't understand why he did not become a bigger star after this film. Now, look, this film was a flop. It has horrible ratings, as you can see, and it didn't catch on, but you would think that Hollywood would see Michael J. White and pick up on him, and with the exception of Blood and Bone and Black Dynamite, he's been largely ignored, although he is coming out with a new movie called Outlaw Johnny Black. It's in the mold of Black Dynamite. It's going to be fantastic, but I digress. Now, I do want to put John Leguizamo in the good column, but I do have a bit of a gripe with his character. You see, I do think that the way he looked, his prosthetics, his movements, his grossness, that was really well done. But I think that the jokes and the quips was just a bit much. It was about at a 9, and I think we should have dialed that back to around the 5. So, for instance, this scene here with the pizza, I actually think that scene is really funny. But then all the joke scenes at the graveyard, they just don't make any sense and they're awful. And it's not his fault that there's too many jokes in the movie. That's actually the writers and director's fault. But I have to give him credit. He actually did well in this film. And like I said, his character looked gross and creepy, and I just think it could have been a lot less jokey. Now, let me give a small mention to Martin Sheen. You know, he's doing the best that he can with what he's given in the film. He has like no backstory. He's just some guy who has a corporation and he has power and he wants more power. He just wants to control the world. And it is just so basic and generic. But you can't go wrong with Martin Sheen. I mean, he's a great actor. He's got that raspy voice. I just want to throw a lozenge in his mouth. I always think of him as the elusive man. I played a ridiculous amount of Mass Effect, and he made that character. Now, the final thing that I wanted to mention was the prosthetics in the film. I want to give credit to both John Leguizamo and Michael J. White because from what I understand, the prosthetics for this film were awful. John Leguizamo reportedly spent 8 hours in makeup, and eventually they were able to reduce that to 4 hours, but 4 hours, and there was no ventilation in both John Leguizamo's bodysuit and Michael J. White's suit. So it must have been incredibly uncomfortable. I have to give them credit because I hate CGI bodysuits. There's just something about them that looks real to me. And that is what's most important in the film. The film should look real. But I have to give massive amounts of credits to both Spawn's look, his bodysuit, his face. I just loved it. I wish there was more of it. I understand why there wasn't more of it because the suits were uncomfortable, but man, I wish there was more of that bodysuit. It is fantastic looking. And now, let's move on to the negatives. Let's start off with the big one that you cannot ignore, and that is the CGI. The CGI in this is just... oh god, it's so bad. It's really, really bad. Here's the thing. The director of this movie is actually a special effects artist who has worked on films such as Jurassic Park. Look, here's the full story. There was supposed to be a lot less CGI, and the budget was overinflated, most likely by the director, and it just looks awful. The cape looks heavily outdated. But when this movie came out, I think the cape was fine. It's when he's in hell and Malboja. Oh my god, look at this. It looks awful. It looks like a PlayStation 1 game. It is just so bad. Now, the second thing that I don't like about this film is the story. So I agree with Michael J. White. You see, Michael J. White a couple of years ago said that he didn't like this film. Now, he elaborated further a little while back, and he said that the script was heavily edited and it was watered down to the point where it was nothing. Is that the script is awful. There's really no story. It's pretty generic. I've heard some reviews that say that the story's confusing. It's not really confusing. Al Simmons just wants to be with his wife and wants revenge. And Malboja wants to completely destroy the Earth. And Martin Sheen's character thinks he's going to rule the planet, but he's actually being betrayed by Malboja. Like, that's it. That's the whole core of the story. I would also give a small mention to Cagliostro. I don't think that he was necessary in the film. I understand why they put him in the film. They put him in the film to give exposition to the main character and also to teach him how to use his powers, but as we've seen from other superhero films, you don't need another person to teach you your powers. You can do it all on your own and still make it highly entertaining. And so I think Cagliostro was a weak point. I don't think that the actor was that bad. I just don't think that the character was needed at all within the film. Now, I do want to give an honorable mention to the look and feel of the world when Al Simmons returns 5 years later. It really looks grungy and awful and hopeless. So they really did a good job there. But again, it wasn't the focus of the film. If maybe the story of the film was Al Simmons protecting this disgusting alley and the homeless people, it would have been much better. Well, I think that's going to be it for me today. I actually enjoyed this movie. I know that it has such an awful score, and I know the CGI is bad. And maybe it was because this movie came out when I was in my teens, and, when you're in your younger years, everything looks and feels fantastic because, you don't have any responsibility, obviously. By the way, if you're looking to watch it, it's on HBO Max. I'm not going to call it Max. I refuse to call it that. I watched this film a few days ago, and I still enjoyed it. Yes, the CGI is awful. There's a couple of scenes that drag on a bit, and as I've said, there's one too many jokes with John Leguizamo, but overall, I had a fun time watching the movie. I still watched it from beginning to end. So I'm still gonna put this as a movie that I like despite most people not liking. For me, Spawn holds a special place in my heart. And as we speak, they are trying to make a new movie, but it seems like it's been delayed for years and years. Although this new movie is going to have Todd McFarlane attached. Todd McFarlane is the creator of Spawn. So the next movie that does come out is going to be in good hands. But for my money, I would have liked to see Michael J. White reprise his role as Spawn. By the way, if you like the Spawn movie, there's actually an animated series also on HBO Max.
Is this how you protect and serve?
Shit.
I clocked him. I know it.
Anyway, that's it from me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video format. If you do, leave a comment below. Tell me how I'm doing. I truly appreciate your input, and I truly appreciate your support. Thank you so much again, and you all have a lovely evening. Take care.